Most people would never look twice at a penny from the early 1960s. But what if I told you one small copper coin from 1962 could still surprise collectors today, hide rare errors, and sometimes sell for far more than 1 cent? If you've ever wondered whether the pennies in your drawer might be worth more than you think, this story starts with one very specific coin, the 1962 D. Lincoln penny. The 1962 D. Lincoln cent was struck at the Denver Mint and features the famous image of President Abraham Lincoln on the front. It looks simple, ordinary, almost invisible in daily life. But coins like this are tiny time capsules. They carry stories of American history, industry, and even human mistakes that can turn a common object into something extraordinary. To understand this coin, we need to travel back to the early 1960s. The United States was in the middle of major social change. The Cold War was shaping politics, the space race was accelerating, and everyday Americans were using cash constantly. Pennies weren't just spare change. They were essential for newspapers, phone calls, parking meters, and groceries. Billions of coins were being produced each year to keep the economy moving. In 1962, the Denver Mint struck more than 3 billion Lincoln pennies. That sounds like an unbelievable number, and it is. But it also explains why most 1962 D pennies today are still common. They were used heavily, passed from hand to hand, dropped into cash registers, pockets, and coin jars across the country. Yet within that massive production run, small variations, rare errors, and high-grade survivors quietly emerged. The design of the 1962 D penny follows the classic Lincoln cent look that began in 1909. On the front, Abraham Lincoln faces right, with the words "In God We Trust" above his head, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1962 to the right. Just below the date is a small D, showing the coin was made in Denver. On the back, you'll see the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to mark the 150th anniversary of Lincoln's birth. If you look closely, you can even see Lincoln's statue inside the memorial, making this one of the few U.S. coins where the same person appears on both sides. The metal composition of the 1962 penny is another important detail. It's made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. This gives the coin its warm, reddish tone when new, though most examples today appear brown or reddish-brown from decades of circulation. These copper pennies are heavier and thicker than modern pennies, which are mostly zinc with a thin copper coating. Many collectors love this era because it represents the final decades of traditional solid copper cents before rising metal costs changed everything. At first glance, the 1962 D penny seems ordinary, but what makes certain examples special are the small details that most people miss. Some coins were struck more sharply than others. Some have stronger details in Lincoln's hair or beard. Others show cleaner lines in the Lincoln Memorial columns. These differences may seem tiny, but in coin collecting, they can mean the difference between a 1-cent coin and one worth hundreds of dollars. Then there are mint errors. These are mistakes made during the coin production process. And in 1962, the Denver Mint produced a few varieties that collectors actively search for today. One of the most interesting types of errors is the doubled die. This happens when the coin die receives a misaligned impression during the hubbing process, causing certain parts of the design to appear doubled. On some 1962 pennies, collectors have found slight doubling in the date or lettering, especially in God We Trust or Liberty. These aren't easy to spot, but once confirmed, they can significantly increase a coin's value. Another error collectors watch for is the repunched mint mark. In earlier years, mint marks were added by hand to the dies, and sometimes they were stamped more than once. This can create the appearance of a doubled or shadowed D under magnification. While not all repunched mint marks are dramatic, the clearer examples from 1962 can bring solid premiums from collectors. There are also off-center strikes, where the design is not properly centered on the coin blank, leaving part of the design missing. Some off-center 1962D pennies show 10, 20, or even 30% of the design shifted, making them visually striking and highly collectible. And then there are clipped planchets, where the metal blank wasn't cut correctly before striking, leaving a curved bite-shaped area missing from the coin. When combined with a clear date and mint mark, these errors become especially desirable. So why would a penny with billions minted be worth real money? The answer lies in condition, rarity within the population, and collector demand. Most 1962D pennies were used in everyday transactions and became worn, scratched, and dull over time. High-grade examples, especially those that look nearly perfect, are surprisingly scarce. In the coin world, condition is measured using a grading scale that goes from heavily worn to mint state. A mint state coin shows no wear from circulation and retains sharp details and original surface luster. Among mint state coins, the highest grades are extremely difficult to achieve, especially for copper coins that are sensitive to marks, stains, and discoloration. A typical circulated 1962D penny might be worth 1 to 5 cents today, but a mint state example with strong red color can be worth several dollars. And the finest known examples, graded at the very top levels, have sold for far more. At major coin auctions, high-grade 1962D pennies have sold for hundreds of dollars. In some cases, exceptionally well-preserved examples with deep red surfaces and razor-sharp details have reached over $1,000. These aren't fantasy prices. They're documented sales to collectors who value rarity and condition, even among common dates. Error coins can bring even stronger premiums. A confirmed double die example or dramatic off-center strike from 1962D can sell for anywhere from $50 to several $100s, depending on the clarity and severity of the error. And rare error combinations, such as a broad strike or multiple minting mistakes on one coin, can reach 4 figures in the right auction. Of course, whenever money is involved, the question of authenticity comes up. How can you tell if your 1962D penny is real or altered? First, check the basics. A genuine 1962D penny should weigh about 3.11 grams and have a diameter of about 19 millimeters. The metal should look like solid copper, not plated zinc. If your coin feels unusually light or shows bubbling under the surface, it could be altered or damaged. Next, look closely at the mint mark. The D should appear clean and properly shaped. If it looks oddly positioned, uneven, or scratched into the coin, it may be an added mint mark, which makes it a novelty, not a genuine mint variety. For suspected errors like double dies, use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe and look for true doubling, not blurry shadows caused by machine vibration. True doubling shows separation lines and distinct overlapping shapes in letters or numbers. If you think you've found something unusual, the best next step is to have the coin examined by a reputable coin dealer or third-party grading service. One important thing to remember is that cleaning a coin almost always lowers its value. Even gentle cleaning can damage the surface and remove the natural patina collectors want. If you think your 1962D penny might be special, leave it exactly as it is. There are also some fascinating stories behind the era this coin comes from. In 1962, the U.S. Mint was producing massive quantities of coins to keep up with economic growth and rising population. At the same time, copper prices were beginning to climb, which would eventually lead to the major composition change in pennies in 1982. That makes coins like the 1962D penny part of the final generation of traditional solid copper cents. Another fun detail is that the Lincoln Memorial reverse design remained in use for nearly 50 years, from 1959 until 2008. That means the 1962D penny shares its look with coins that millions of Americans grew up using, making it deeply nostalgic for many collectors today. Some collectors enjoy building full date-hand mint sets of Lincoln cents, and the 1962 D is a necessary piece in that puzzle. Others focus on finding the best possible example of a common coin, hunting for that perfect strike with blazing red surfaces. And some specialize in errors, searching rolls and collections for hidden mistakes that escape the mint's quality control. What makes this coin especially appealing is that it's still accessible. You don't need thousands of dollars to start searching for a great 1962 D penny. Many collectors have found them in old jars, inherited collections, or rolls from the bank. Every time someone checks their change, there's a chance, however small, that a beautifully preserved or error example could be waiting. And there's something exciting about that. It turns everyday objects into treasure hunts. It transforms pocket change into history lessons. It connects modern collectors to the hands that used these coins more than 60 years ago. Collectors love the 1962 D penny, not because it's the rarest coin in America, but because it represents the magic of coin collecting itself. It proves that value isn't always about age alone. It's about condition, story, craftsmanship, and sometimes simple luck. A single cent that once bought a newspaper or a piece of candy can now become a collectible artifact. And in its best forms, it can command prices that surprise even experienced collectors. So the next time you see a small copper penny dated 1962 with a tiny D beneath the year, take a moment, turn it over, look at Lincoln's face, look at the memorial, think about where it's been, who's held it, and what it's witnessed over the decades. Most will be worth just 1 cent, but a few could be worth much more. And that's the beauty of coins like the 1962 D Lincoln penny. They hide history in plain sight. They remind us that ordinary things can hold extraordinary stories. And sometimes, all it takes to uncover them is a closer look. Because in the world of coin collecting, even the smallest coin can carry the biggest surprises. What if I told you that a penny from your pocket change could be connected to one of the most famous coin discoveries in American history, and that a tiny letter beneath the date could mean the difference between a few cents and thousands of dollars? Today, we're uncovering the true story of the 1969 D Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, but one that collectors search for every single day. The 1969 D Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck by the United States Mint in Denver. The small D below the date tells us it came from that mint facility. And in 1969, billions of pennies were produced for everyday use. At first glance, this coin looks completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait appears on the front, and the Lincoln Memorial is on the back. But behind this simple design is a story that connects to history, controversy, and one of the most dramatic error coin hunts ever recorded. To understand this penny, we need to go back to the late 1960s. The United States was going through massive cultural and political change. The Vietnam War, the Civil Rights Movement, and the space race were dominating headlines. Meanwhile, Americans were using more coins than ever before in vending machines, parking meters, and public transportation. The mint needed to strike huge numbers of cents to keep up with daily demand. By 1969, pennies were still made mostly of copper, which gave them their warm reddish-brown color and solid feel. The Lincoln cent design had already been around for more than 60 years by that point. Abraham Lincoln first appeared on the penny in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of his birth, making it the first U.S. coin to feature a real person. In 1959, the reverse side was changed from wheat stalks to the Lincoln Memorial, and that design remained in use through 2008. The Denver Mint struck over 4 billion pennies in 1969, making the 1969 D cent one of the most common coins of its era. Millions of Americans carried them in their pockets, dropped them into jars, and spent them without a second thought. And yet, today, collectors still carefully examine these coins, not because most are rare, but because one tiny variation from that year became legendary. Let's start with the normal features of the 1969 D penny. It weighs about 3.11 grams and is made of 95% copper and 5% zinc and tin. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the word liberty to his left and the phrase "In God we trust" above his head. Below the date is the small D mint mark, showing it was made in Denver. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands in the center, with United States of America at the top and 1 cent at the bottom. Most 1969 D pennies show the effects of circulation. You'll often see wear on Lincoln's cheek, jawline, and coat, as well as fading on the memorial steps and columns. In average condition, these coins are worth only face value. Even in nice uncirculated condition, most sell for just a few cents to maybe $1. But what makes this coin exciting isn't the regular version. It's the connection to one of the rarest and most famous Lincoln cent errors ever discovered. In 1969, the San Francisco Mint accidentally struck a small number of pennies with a dramatic doubled die error. On those coins, the date and lettering appeared doubled, as if the words were shadowed or repeated slightly. These coins became known as the 1969's doubled die obverse cents, and they are among the most valuable Lincoln pennies in existence. Some have sold for more than $100,000 at auction. Why does this matter to the 1969 D penny? Because when news of the 1969's doubled die spread, people across the country began checking every penny from 1969, no matter the mint mark. Coin collectors, bank tellers, and everyday citizens searched rolls of cents hoping to find that rare error. As a result, the entire 1969 penny series became famous, and the Denver minted version became one of the most searched common date cents in U.S. history. Even today, people still examine their 1969 D pennies carefully, hoping they might have stumbled upon something special. While the famous doubled die error only exists on the San Francisco version, there are still interesting varieties and errors that can appear on Denver coins, including off-center strikes, clipped planchets, weak strikes, and die cracks. Some 1969 D pennies show minor doubling, but this is usually mechanical doubling, which is different from a true doubled die. Mechanical doubling happens during the striking process and creates a flat, shelf-like doubling that doesn't add real value. True doubled dies, on the other hand, occur during the die creation process and show rounded, fully formed doubling in the letters and numbers. This distinction is extremely important because confusing the two can lead to disappointment or even expensive mistakes. So why do collectors care so much about the 1969 D penny if most are common? The answer is partly psychological and partly historical. This coin sits right next to one of the most famous error coins ever found. It represents a year when coin collecting excitement swept across the country, and people realized that ordinary pocket change could sometimes hold extraordinary value. That sense of possibility still surrounds the 1969 pennies today. Now let's talk about actual values. A typical circulated 1969 D penny is worth 1 cent. An uncirculated example in mint condition might sell for 10 to 50 cents, depending on color and surface quality. A fully read example graded by a professional service in high condition can sell for several dollars, and in top grades, sometimes over $20 or $30. But those are rare because copper pennies often tone or spot over time. Error coins, however, can bring significantly more. A 1969 D penny struck off-center might sell for $20 to $100, depending on how dramatic the error is. A clipped planchet example could bring similar amounts. Coins with strong die cracks or unusual strike-through errors can also attract collector interest and command premiums. While these are not life-changing sums, they show that even common coins can become valuable when something unusual happens during production. One collector once found a 1969 D penny with a dramatic off-center strike in a roll from a bank. The coin showed nearly 40% of the design missing, yet the date and mint mark were still visible. It later sold at auction for over $75. Another collector discovered a clipped planchet example that brought over $50. These are not everyday finds, but they remind us that surprises can still exist in modern coinage. Because of the fame surrounding the 1969 doubled die cents, counterfeit coins also began appearing in the 1970s and beyond. Some people tried to alter normal pennies to mimic the valuable errors. Others even created fake coins using altered dies. While most fakes target the 1969's doubled die, collectors examining any 1969 penny, including the Denver version, should know how to protect themselves. To identify a genuine 1969 D penny, start with the basics. Look for a clear D mint mark below the date. The lettering should appear sharp, not blurry or uneven. The surfaces should look natural, not overly polished or artificially worn. If you suspect doubling, use a magnifying glass and look closely at the letters in God We Trust and the date. True doubled dies show rounded, separated images, while mechanical doubling looks flat and shelf-like. Weight is another important factor. A normal 1969 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. A significant difference could indicate damage, alteration, or an unusual error. The color should match typical copper tones, ranging from bright red to brown, depending on age and storage conditions. If a coin looks suspicious, professional coin grading services can authenticate and evaluate it. One of the most interesting facts about the 1969 penny series is how seriously the government once took counterfeit concerns. When the first 1969 doubled die coins were discovered, the Secret Service initially believed they were fakes. Some collectors had their coins confiscated, and it took years before the government officially acknowledged that the coins were genuine mint errors. This controversy added even more mystique to the 1969 pennies and made them legendary in coin collecting history. Another surprising detail is that, while billions of 1969 D pennies were struck, truly high-grade examples are much harder to find than people expect. Copper is soft, and pennies circulate heavily. Most were quickly scratched, dented, or darkened by exposure to air and moisture. Finding a bright red, sharply struck 1969 D penny in pristine condition today is much more difficult than it seems, especially outside of original mint sets. Collectors also appreciate this coin because it represents the final years of traditional copper pennies. In 1982, the mint switched to mostly zinc cents with a thin copper coating. That change altered the weight, feel, and sound of the penny forever. The 1969 D cent belongs to the era when pennies were solid copper alloy and had a heavier, more substantial presence in the hand. For many collectors, the appeal of the 1969 D penny isn't about big money. It's about the thrill of the hunt. It's about searching through old jars, inherited collections, and bank rolls, knowing that history might be hiding in plain sight. It's about holding a coin that circulated during one of the most transformative periods in American history, and realizing that it has passed through countless hands over more than half a century. This penny also serves as a reminder that coin collecting isn't just about rare dates and high prices. It's about curiosity, learning, and connection. A simple 1-cent coin can teach us about minting technology, economic changes, artistic design, and even government policy. And sometimes, it can lead us to stories of incredible discoveries that started with nothing more than someone looking closely at their change. Many experienced collectors still recommend checking every 1969 penny you find, even the Denver ones. While the odds of finding a major error are extremely low, the habit of careful examination builds knowledge and sharpens your eye. Over time, that skill can help you spot unusual coins that others might miss. One fun detail about the 1969 D penny is that some examples show subtle design variations caused by different dies wearing down during production. Slight differences in the sharpness of Lincoln's hair, the memorial steps, or the lettering can appear from coin to coin. While these minor variations usually don't add value, they remind us that every coin is a tiny product of industrial craftsmanship, shaped by tools that wear and change over time. Collectors today love the 1969 D penny because it connects to a moment when coin collecting captured the public imagination. It represents hope, curiosity, and the idea that treasure might be hiding in everyday places. Even though most of these coins are common, their story is anything but ordinary. So the next time you see a 1969 D penny, don't dismiss it. Hold it for a moment. Think about where it's been. It may have traveled through grocery stores, gas stations, school cafeterias, and parking meters. It may have passed through the hands of people who lived through historic moments, from the moon landing to the end of the Vietnam War. And it still carries that quiet connection to one of the most famous era coins ever discovered. That tiny D, below the date, tells a story of mass production, national demand, and a year when millions of people learned that even a penny could be worth searching for. While most 1969 D cents will never be worth more than face value, their place in numismatic history makes them special in their own way. And who knows? The next time you open an old jar of coins or receive change at a store, you might find one. Not a rare error, not a fortune, but a small copper reminder that history often hides in the simplest places. And sometimes, the real value isn't in what a coin is worth, but in the story it carries, and the curiosity it inspires every time someone stops to look a little closer. What if I told you that a penny you might already own, sitting quietly in a jar or drawer, could be worth far more than 1 cent? Not because it's made of gold or silver, but because of a story hidden in plain sight. Today, we're uncovering the surprising truth behind the 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most people overlook, but collectors search for every day. The 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is one of the most common coins Americans encounter, yet it's also one of the most misunderstood. At first glance, it looks ordinary: Abraham Lincoln on the front, the Lincoln Memorial on the back, nothing flashy, nothing rare. But when you dig deeper, this humble coin reveals a fascinating history, hidden value potential, and a few surprises that could make you take a second look at every penny in your pocket. Let's go back to 1975. The United States was in the middle of a changing era. The Vietnam War had recently ended, inflation was rising, and Americans were adjusting to new economic realities. The U.S. Mint was producing billions of coins each year to keep up with everyday commerce, and pennies were still widely used for almost every cash transaction. That year, most pennies were struck in 3 places: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Coins from Denver carried a small D mint mark. Proof coins from San Francisco carried an S, but pennies struck in Philadelphia had no mint mark at all, which is why so many 1975 pennies appear blank under the date. That missing mint mark isn't an error. It simply means the coin was made in Philadelphia. In 1975 alone, Philadelphia struck over 4.6 billion Lincoln pennies. That's billion with a B. It was one of the highest mintages in U.S. history. These coins were designed for heavy circulation, not collectors, and most were used, worn, scratched, and spent countless times in grocery stores, gas stations, and vending machines. Yet despite this massive production, certain 1975 pennies today are surprisingly desirable, and some are worth far more than face value. First, let's talk about what this coin is made of. By 1975, pennies were no longer solid copper. Rising metal prices in the early 1970s forced the U.S. Mint to change composition. Instead of being 95% copper like older pennies, the 1975 Lincoln cent was made from a zinc core coated with thin layers of copper. This made the coin lighter and cheaper to produce, but also more vulnerable to damage, corrosion, and wear over time. That's why finding a 1975 penny in excellent condition today is harder than you might expect. On the front of the coin, Abraham Lincoln faces right, a design originally created in 1909 to honor his 100th birthday. Above his head is the word liberty. In front of his face is the date, 1975, and along the top edge are the words "In God We Trust." There is no mint mark below the date, confirming it was made in Philadelphia. On the back, you'll find the Lincoln Memorial, with tiny columns and even a small seated statue of Lincoln inside the building, visible under magnification. Above it are the words United States of America, and below it, 1 cent. It's a design that appeared on pennies from 1959 to 2008, and for many Americans, this is the classic penny image they grew up with. So why would anyone care about a coin that was made by the billions? The answer is condition, errors, and survival, three things that turn ordinary coins into collectibles. Most 1975 pennies spent decades in circulation. They were dropped, scraped, bent, and exposed to moisture. Over time, the thin copper coating often wore away, revealing dull gray zinc underneath. Others became spotted, corroded, or stained. As a result, truly high-grade examples, coins that look almost new, are surprisingly scarce today. Collectors use a grading scale, but even without technical terms, you can think of it like this. The closer a coin looks to how it did the day it left the mint, the more valuable it becomes. A bright, clean, shiny 1975 penny with sharp details and no visible wear is far harder to find than most people realize. Now let's talk about errors, the most exciting part of modern coin collecting. Some 1975 no-mint mark pennies were struck with mistakes during the minting process. These errors can turn a 1-cent coin into something worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars. One of the most valuable types is the off-metal strike. This happens when a penny blank accidentally enters the press that was meant for a different coin. For example, a few 1975 pennies have been found struck on dime or foreign coin planchets. These look obviously wrong, lighter, thinner, or silver-colored, and collectors will pay serious money for them. Another error is the double die. This happens when the coin design is accidentally stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on letters or numbers. On some rare 1975 pennies, collectors have found doubling on the date on the word Liberty, or on "In God We Trust." These double details can be subtle, but under magnification they stand out, and their value can jump dramatically. There are also off-center strikes, where the coin wasn't properly aligned when struck, leaving part of the design missing. Some 1975 pennies exist where up to 50% of the design is off the coin, yet the date is still visible, and that combination can be very valuable. Then there are broad strikes, where the coin was struck without a collar, making it wider than normal. And there are clipped planchets, where part of the metal blank was missing before the strike, creating a curved or straight bite out of the coin. Each of these errors tells a story about what went wrong inside the minting machinery that day, and collectors love owning those stories. But even without errors, condition alone can drive surprising prices. Let's look at real market examples. In circulated condition, meaning worn but readable, most 1975 no-mint mark pennies are worth about 1 cent to maybe 5 cents. That's normal. Nothing special there. But in uncirculated condition, meaning they show no wear and still have full mint luster, values rise quickly. A clean, well-preserved example can sell for several dollars. Coins graded in the top condition levels by professional grading services have sold for much more. Some top-grade 1975 pennies have sold at auction for over $1,000. A few exceptional specimens, coins that look nearly perfect under magnification, have reached even higher prices when collectors compete for registry sets, where only the best examples of each year and type are accepted. And when you combine high condition with rare errors, prices can climb into the thousands. There have been documented sales of 1975 error pennies exceeding $3,000, especially for off-metal strikes and dramatic double-die varieties. These aren't common, but they exist, and they continue to surface in collections, estate sales, and sometimes even pocket change. So how can you tell if your 1975 penny is worth more than 1 cent? First, check for the mint mark. If there's no letter under the date, that's normal, it means Philadelphia. This alone doesn't make the coin rare, but it confirms the variety we're talking about. Next, look at the condition. Is the coin bright and shiny or dull and dark? Are Lincoln's hair details sharp or worn smooth? Are the lines in the Lincoln Memorial clear? If the coin looks almost new, that's a strong sign it could be worth setting aside. Then examine the date and lettering closely. Use a magnifying glass or your phone camera. Look for doubling, especially on the numbers 1975, the word liberty, and in God we trust. If the letters appear thick, shadowed, or doubled, you might have a collectible error. Check the coin's shape and size. Is it centered? Is part of the design missing? Is the coin wider than normal? Does it look thinner or lighter in color than a normal penny? Any of these could signal a minting error. Also check the edges. A normal penny edge is smooth and uniform. If you see odd cuts, missing sections, or strange shapes, don't dismiss them. Those could be clipped planchets or striking errors. As for fakes, most 1975 pennies aren't valuable enough to counterfeit, but rare error coins sometimes are. Be cautious of coins that look altered, filed, sanded, or artificially damaged. Real mint errors usually have smooth, natural metal flow lines and consistent surfaces. If something looks forced or unnatural, it probably is. If you think you've found something special, the best next step is to have it examined by a reputable coin dealer or third-party grading service. They can authenticate it and give you a professional assessment of its value. Now let's talk about a few fun facts that make this coin even more interesting. First, the 1975 penny is part of the last generation of U.S. cents before major economic shifts made small change increasingly controversial. Today, many people debate whether the penny should even exist, yet millions of collectors still treasure these coins as pieces of American history. Second, because the zinc core corrodes easily when exposed, many 1975 pennies have developed bubbles, blisters, or peeling copper surfaces over time. These damaged coins aren't valuable, but they help explain why pristine examples are harder to find. Third, some 1975 pennies have been discovered with die cracks, thin raised lines caused by cracked mint dies. While minor cracks are common, large or dramatic cracks that run across Lincoln's face or through the memorial can be collectible and command premiums. And here's something surprising. Despite being so common, the 1975 penny is one of the most frequently submitted modern cents for professional grading. Not because people expect them to be rare, but because collectors chase top-condition examples for competitive registry sets. That demand quietly drives prices upward for the very best specimens. So why do collectors love this coin today? Because it represents something powerful. The idea that everyday objects can become meaningful over time. The 1975 no-mint mark Lincoln penny isn't rare because of low production. It's rare because of survival. Billions were made, but very few remain in pristine condition. That transformation from ordinary to exceptional is what collectors find fascinating. It's also a coin that reminds people of a simpler time, when pennies mattered, when change jingled in pockets, and when small coins still played a big role in daily life. For many collectors, this penny isn't just metal, it's memory. And then there's the thrill of discovery. Every time someone dumps a jar of old change onto a table, there's a chance, however small, that a perfectly preserved 1975 penny or a rare error variety is hiding in plain sight. That possibility is what keeps collectors searching rolls, boxes, and inherited collections decades after these coins were minted. The truth is, most 1975 no-mint mark pennies are only worth a cent, but some are worth dollars, a few are worth hundreds, and a rare handful are worth thousands. And the only way to know which one you have is to look. So the next time you see a 1975 penny, don't toss it aside. Hold it up to the light, look closely at the date, study Lincoln's face, check the letters, because that quiet little coin may carry a story and possibly a value far greater than its face suggests. Sometimes history isn't locked inside museums or vaults. Sometimes it's hiding in your pocket. Most people would walk right past this penny without a second thought. But what if I told you that a simple 1976 Lincoln penny with a small letter under the date could be worth far more than 1 cent, and in rare cases, thousands of times more? Today, we're uncovering the hidden story behind the 1976 D Mint Mark Lincoln penny and why collectors quietly search for this coin every day. At first glance, this coin looks ordinary. It's a brown or copper-colored penny with Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back. You've probably held one before, but the tiny letter D below the date tells us something important. It means this penny was struck at the Denver Mint in 1976, during one of the most interesting years in modern American coin history. And inside this everyday coin is a story of changing metals, national pride, and hidden collector value. To understand this penny, we need to go back to the mid-1970s. The United States was celebrating its bicentennial, 200 years, since the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Special quarters, half dollars, and dollar coins were released with patriotic designs, but the penny didn't change its appearance. Still, 1976 was a historic year for American coinage behind the scenes. Inflation was rising, metal prices were unstable, and the U.S. Mint was experimenting with new ways to produce coins more efficiently while maintaining quality. By 1976, Lincoln cents had already undergone a major change. Before 1982, pennies were mostly made of copper, about 95% copper with small amounts of zinc. That meant the 1976 penny is one of the last true copper Lincoln cents ever made. That alone gives it special status among collectors today. Soon after, rising copper prices forced the mint to switch to cheaper zinc cores with thin copper coatings. But in 1976, the penny was still solid, heavy, and rich in copper content. The Denver Mint played a big role that year. Over 4.2 billion pennies were struck in Denver alone. That's a massive number. With so many made, you might think these coins would never be valuable. But in the world of coin collecting, rarity doesn't always mean low mintage. Sometimes, rarity comes from condition, errors, or unusual production mistakes that slipped past quality control and into circulation. Let's take a closer look at the design. On the front, we see the familiar profile of Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner in 1909. Above Lincoln's head is the word Liberty. To the right is the date, 1976, and just below it, the small D mint mark. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with the tiny statue of Lincoln visible between the central columns. A detail many people never notice until it's pointed out. The coin weighs about 3.11 grams and has a solid copper sound when dropped on a hard surface, unlike newer zinc pennies, which sound lighter and duller. Its edge is smooth, and its diameter is just under 3/4 of an inch. Everything about it feels simple and familiar, and that's exactly why so many valuable examples go unnoticed. Now here's where things get interesting. While most 1976 D pennies are only worth face value in everyday condition, certain versions can be worth much more. The biggest factor is condition. A penny that has never circulated, meaning it still has full original mint luster and no wear, can sell for several dollars, sometimes more than $20 if graded at the highest levels. But condition is only part of the story. Errors and varieties are what really excite collectors. During high-speed minting in the 1970s, mistakes happened. Some coins were struck off-center. Others were struck twice, creating doubled images. Some were struck on wrong planchets, blank metal discs meant for other coins, creating rare and dramatic errors. One of the most desirable varieties is the 1976 doubled die penny. In these coins, parts of the lettering or date appear doubled due to a misalignment during the die creation process. The doubling isn't subtle. On genuine doubled die examples, you can often see clear separation in the numbers of the date or in the word Liberty. These coins can sell for hundreds, sometimes over $1,000, depending on condition. Another rare error involves broad strikes, where the coin is struck without the retaining collar, causing it to spread out wider than normal. These coins look distorted and slightly larger than regular pennies. Even though the design is still visible, the shape is wrong, and that wrongness is exactly what makes collectors want them. Then there are off-metal errors. Occasionally, a penny was struck on a blank intended for another denomination or foreign coin. These are extremely rare and can sell for thousands of dollars if authenticated by a professional grading service. Imagine finding a penny that weighs differently, looks silvery instead of copper, and turns out to be a once-in-a-lifetime mint error. So how valuable can a 1976 D penny really be? In circulated condition, most examples are worth 1 cent, maybe 2 or 3 cents to a collector who needs one for a set. But in uncirculated condition, values rise quickly. A 1976 D penny graded MS65, which means mint state with strong eye appeal, often sells for around $5 to $10. At MS67, prices can climb into the $100 range or more. For error coins, the numbers jump dramatically. Off-center strikes can sell for $50 to $300 depending on how dramatic the misalignment is. Broad strikes often sell for $40 to $150. Double die varieties have sold for several $100s, and rare off-metal strikes have sold for over $1,000 at auction. One notable example involved a high-grade 1976 D double die penny that sold at auction for over $2,000 after professional grading confirmed its authenticity. Another off-metal strike brought nearly $3,000 because it was struck on a foreign planchet and showed sharp detail on both sides. These are not everyday finds, but they prove that this simple penny can carry surprising value. So how can you tell if your 1976 D penny might be special? Start by looking at the date and mint mark. Use a magnifying glass or phone camera zoom. Check the numbers in 1976 and the letters in Liberty for doubling, not blurry shadows, but clear separation or thickness that looks like two images instead of one. Next, look at the shape. Is the coin perfectly round? Does it look stretched or uneven? That could indicate an off-center strike or broad strike. Then check the weight if you can. A normal 1976 penny should weigh about 3.11 grams. A significantly different weight could signal an off-metal error or clipped planchet. Also examine the surface. Look for missing details, cracks, unusual lines, or blank areas. Some errors occur when grease fills the die, causing parts of the design not to strike properly. These grease strike errors can create ghost-like or faded lettering and are collectible in their own right. Now let's talk about fakes. Yes, even pennies can be faked. Most counterfeit 1976 D pennies are altered coins, where someone tries to create the appearance of doubling or modifies the mint mark. Genuine double die errors show doubling that's part of the design itself, not added later. Under magnification, real doubling looks rounded and natural, while fake doubling often looks sharp, scratched, or uneven. If you think you've found something valuable, the safest move is to send it to a professional grading service like PCGS or NGC. They authenticate the coin, grade it, and seal it in a protective holder. This not only confirms its legitimacy, but also makes it easier to sell if you ever choose to. Here's a surprising fact. Millions of valuable coins are still sitting in jars, drawers, piggy banks, and old collections across America. Many people inherited coins without realizing what they had. Others saved pennies casually during childhood and forgot about them. And some rare errors slip through unnoticed because people simply don't know what to look for. Another fun detail about the 1976 penny is its sound. If you drop a copper penny and a zinc penny side by side, the copper one rings slightly clearer and brighter. That's because solid copper vibrates differently than plated zinc. It's a small detail, but it connects you physically to a time when American coins were made differently than they are today. Collectors also love this coin because it represents the end of an era. The copper Lincoln cent had existed since 1909, surviving 2 world wars, the Great Depression, and countless changes in American society. Just 6 years after 1976, that copper composition would disappear forever. So holding this coin is like holding one of the last chapters of a long-running American tradition. There's also something emotional about pennies from the 1970s. Many people alive today remember using them in candy machines, phone booths, school cafeterias, and parking meters. These coins passed through everyday hands during a time of major cultural change. The end of the Vietnam War, the bicentennial celebrations, and shifts in the American economy. Each one carries quiet history. For collectors, the 1976 D penny fits into several popular collecting goals. Some build complete Lincoln cent sets by date and mint mark. Others focus on error coins. Some collect only copper cents. And some look for high-grade examples to submit for grading in hopes of finding a top population coin, one of the best preserved examples known. What makes this coin especially appealing is accessibility. Unlike rare gold coins or colonial-era pieces that cost thousands of dollars up front, the 1976 D penny is something anyone can search for right now. You can check your pocket change, old jars, inherited collections, or bank rolls. The barrier to entry is almost zero, but the potential reward can be significant. And even if you don't find a rare error, there's satisfaction in learning to look closely. Coin collecting trains the eye to notice small details, patterns, and differences that most people overlook. It turns everyday objects into historical artifacts and transforms ordinary change into miniature time capsules. So the next time you see a penny dated 1976 with a tiny D under the year, pause for a moment, turn it over, look closely. Ask yourself if it might be more than just spare change. Because hidden inside some of these coins are stories of mistakes, transitions, and moments in American minting history that no one intended but collectors now treasure. And who knows? The next time you reach into a coin jar, you might pull out a piece of metal that once passed unnoticed, but today could be worth far more than its humble face value. Sometimes, the greatest discoveries are hiding in plain sight, quietly waiting for someone curious enough to look twice. Most people would walk past this penny without a second thought. It looks ordinary. It feels ordinary. But what if I told you that a 1978 penny sitting in your pocket, jar, or drawer could be far more important than you ever imagined? This is the story of the 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin millions of Americans have handled, spent, and forgotten. Yet behind its simple copper shine is a fascinating chapter of U.S. history, hidden collector value, and rare varieties that have surprised people with serious money. Today, we're uncovering what makes this penny special, how to identify one, and why collectors still search for it decades later. Let's start with what this coin actually is. The 1978 no mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1-cent coin struck at the Philadelphia Mint. In that year, Philadelphia did not use a mint mark on pennies, so if your 1978 penny has no letter under the date, that means it was made there. This coin features Abraham Lincoln on the front and the Lincoln Memorial on the back, a design Americans had seen since 1959. At first glance, it looks exactly like most other pennies from the late 1970s. But the year 1978 was part of a major turning point in U.S. coin history, one that quietly makes these pennies more interesting than many people realize. To understand why, we need to go back to the 1970s. The United States was facing rising metal prices, inflation, and growing production costs. Copper was becoming more expensive, and the government was actively looking for ways to reduce costs while still producing billions of coins each year. At the same time, the Lincoln cent had already been in circulation for nearly 70 years, making it one of the most recognized coins in the country. In 1978 alone, the Philadelphia Mint produced more than 5.5 billion pennies. That's billion with a B. It was one of the highest mintage years in U.S. history. These coins were made to meet enormous demand for small change in everyday commerce, vending machines, cash registers, toll booths, and gas stations. And yet, despite those massive numbers, not all 1978 pennies are the same. Some were struck better than others. Some contain small errors, and a few rare varieties stand out dramatically from the rest. Now let's look at the coin itself. On the front, you'll see Abraham Lincoln facing right, with the words "In God We Trust" along the top, "Liberty" to the left, and the date 1978 on the right. There is no mint mark under the date if it was struck in Philadelphia. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall in the center, with United States of America at the top, 1 cent at the bottom, and E pluribus unum above the memorial. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the building, which makes this one of the few U.S. coins to feature the same person twice. The coin is made mostly of copper, about 95% copper and 5% zinc, and weighs approximately 3.11 grams. This makes it part of the final era of true copper pennies, before the mint switched to copper-plated zinc in 1982. That copper content alone already makes these coins interesting, because modern pennies feel lighter and sound different when dropped. Many collectors prefer the older solid copper cents, and that gives the 1978 penny a special place in transitional coin history. But here's where things get really interesting. Even though billions were minted, collectors are not just looking for any 1978 penny. They're looking for pennies in exceptional condition, rare minting errors, and unusual varieties, coins that escaped normal quality control and became something unique. One of the most famous varieties from 1978 is the double die obverse. A double die happens when the coin's design is impressed twice during the creation of the die, but slightly misaligned. This results in visible doubling on letters or numbers. On some 1978 pennies, collectors have found noticeable doubling on the word Liberty, the date, and sometimes even Lincoln's profile. To the naked eye, these coins can look normal at first, but under magnification, the letters appear thick, shadowed, or doubled, and this small visual difference can mean a huge jump in value. Another important category is off-center strikes. These occur when the blank coin planchet isn't properly aligned during striking, causing part of the design to be missing. The more dramatic and centered the error, the more valuable the coin can become. Then there are clipped planchets, where part of the coin's metal was missing before striking, leaving a curved or straight-edge gap. These errors create visually striking coins that collectors love. And of course, there are coins struck on the wrong metal, though these are extremely rare for pennies of this era. Still, even small mint errors like weak strikes, die cracks, or filled letters can attract collector interest. So why is the 1978 no mint mark penny considered valuable by some collectors? First, condition matters more than most people realize. While circulated 1978 pennies are usually worth face value, uncirculated coins, especially those graded in top condition, can sell for impressive prices. Coins graded M, S67 or higher by professional grading services have sold for hundreds or even thousands of dollars. That's because finding a perfect penny from circulation-heavy years like 1978 is extremely difficult. These coins were produced fast, handled roughly, and used heavily. Very few survived without scratches, marks, or wear. Second, error coins and varieties dramatically change the value. A regular 1978 penny may be worth 1 cent, but a verified double die or major mint error could be worth anywhere from $50 to several $1,000s, depending on rarity and condition. Now let's talk real-world examples. In recent years, a 1978 no-mint mark Lincoln penny graded MS67 red sold at auction for over $1,500. That's not because the coin was rare in quantity, but because it was rare in perfection. Even more impressive, confirmed double die varieties have sold for several $100s, with higher-end examples reaching over $1,000 when demand is strong. Off-center strikes from this year have sold anywhere from $50 to over $500 depending on how dramatic the error is and whether the date remains visible. These prices surprise people, especially those who grew up seeing these coins every day. Most assume modern pennies have no collector value, but in the world of numismatics, rarity isn't just about age, it's about condition, uniqueness, and story. So how do you know if your 1978 penny is real, valuable, or just ordinary? First, check the date and mint mark. Look under the year. If there's no letter, it's from Philadelphia, that's correct for this coin. If you see a D, that means Denver. S means San Francisco, which mostly struck proof coins that year. Next, weigh the coin. A real 1978 penny should weigh around 3.11 grams. Significant deviation could indicate damage, wear, or a mint error, or possibly a counterfeit, though counterfeiting pennies is rare. Then inspect the surface carefully. Look for doubling on the letters and numbers, especially on Liberty. In God we trust, and the date. Use a magnifying glass or phone camera zoom. True double dies show clear separation lines, not blurry shadows or flat reflections. Check the edges and shape. Any missing metal, curved cuts, or unusual outlines may indicate a clipped planchet or off-center strike. Also examine the color. Original uncirculated copper pennies from 1978 often have a rich red or reddish-orange tone. Brown coloration usually means circulation or environmental exposure. If you suspect your coin might be special, never clean it. Cleaning can permanently reduce collector value, even if the coin looks shinier afterward. Instead, place it in a soft holder or plastic flip and consider professional evaluation. Now here's something most people don't realize. Even though 1978 pennies are common, the number of high-grade survivors is extremely low. Out of billions minted, only a tiny fraction remain in pristine condition. This creates a strange reality where an ordinary-looking penny can become rare simply by surviving untouched. Another surprising detail is that 1978 was part of the final stretch of solid copper cents. Just 4 years later, the U.S. Mint switched to copper-plated zinc cores. That means these coins represent the end of an era, the last generation of true copper circulation cents. And here's another fun fact. If you dropped a 1978 penny and a modern penny side by side, you could actually hear the difference. The solid copper penny produces a softer, richer sound, while zinc pennies sound sharper and lighter. Some longtime collectors can tell them apart instantly. There's also something emotional about these coins. 1978 was a year of major cultural change in America. The country was emerging from the economic struggles of the early 1970s. Inflation was high. Gas prices were volatile, but everyday life still revolved around cash, coins in pockets, jars on dressers, and pennies counted out at the grocery store. These coins passed through millions of hands. They bought candy bars, newspapers, bus rides, and phone calls. They were part of daily American life in a way few objects ever are. That shared history is part of what makes collectors love them today. Collectors aren't just chasing metal. They're chasing moments in time. A 1978 penny is a physical link to a specific year in American history, one that still feels close enough to remember, yet far enough away to feel nostalgic. It's also a coin that invites treasure hunting. Because most people ignore pennies, valuable examples can still be found in circulation, old jars, inherited collections, or forgotten drawers. That sense of discovery, the idea that something valuable might already be in your home, is one of the biggest reasons collectors stay fascinated with coins like this. And unlike rare gold coins or ancient silver pieces locked away in museums, the 1978 penny is approachable. Anyone can search for one. Anyone can hold one. Anyone can become a collector with just a little curiosity. Today, collectors continue to pursue top-condition examples, rare errors, and unusual varieties from this year. Auction prices remain strong for high-grade coins, and demand for error coins continues to grow as more people learn what to look for. And what makes this even more exciting is that new discoveries still happen. Every year, collectors find new doubled dies, unusual strikes, and rare mint anomalies from old rolls of pennies. That means the story of the 1978 Lincoln cent isn't finished yet. It's still unfolding one coin at a time. So the next time you see a penny dated 1978, don't dismiss it. Look at it carefully. Turn it over. Check the details. Because in a world where most people see only 1 cent, collectors see possibility, history, and sometimes even surprise value hiding in plain sight. That small copper coin might be ordinary, or it might be extraordinary, and the only way to know is to look. Most people would walk right past this penny without a second thought. But what if I told you that a simple 1984 Lincoln cent sitting in a jar, drawer, or old wallet could be worth far more than 1 cent, and in rare cases, hundreds or even thousands of dollars? Today, we're uncovering the hidden story of the 1984 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and why collectors are still searching for it decades later. The coin we're talking about today is the 1984 Lincoln 1 cent piece with no mint mark. When a penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint, the main mint facility in the United States. In 1984, billions of pennies were produced, and at first glance, they all look ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar profile appears on the front, and the Lincoln Memorial stands on the back, just like millions of other cents from that era. But what makes this coin fascinating isn't what it looks like. It's what might be hiding in plain sight. To understand why the 1984 penny matters, we need to step back in time. The year 1984 was part of a major transition period for U.S. coinage. Just 2 years earlier, in 1982, the U.S. Mint changed the composition of the penny from mostly copper to mostly zinc coated with a thin layer of copper. This change was made because copper prices were rising, and it was becoming more expensive to make pennies than their face value. By 1984, the Mint was still adjusting to this new metal process. Billions of zinc-core pennies were being produced at high speed, and during that rush, small mistakes sometimes slipped through. Most coins were perfectly normal, but a few had errors that collectors now prize. The design of the 1984 penny follows the classic Lincoln Memorial style, introduced in 1959, to honor the 150th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth. On the front, you see Lincoln facing right, with the word Liberty to the left and the date to the right. Above his head is the phrase, "In God we trust." On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with the words United States of America and 1 cent framing it. If you look closely, you can even see a tiny statue of Lincoln inside the memorial, one of the smallest detailed figures ever placed on a circulating U.S. coin. The metal makeup of the 1984 penny is 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper coating. It weighs about 2.5 grams, much lighter than older copper cents, which weighed over 3 grams. To most people, this change went unnoticed. But to collectors, it marked the beginning of a whole new era of penny varieties and errors. So why would a coin that was made in massive numbers be valuable today? The answer lies in one word: errors. The most famous and valuable variety of the 1984 Lincoln penny is known as the 1984 doubled ear penny. On this error coin, Lincoln's ear appears doubled, as if there's a shadow or second outline behind it. This wasn't damage or wear, it happened during the die-making process, when the design was impressed into the metal die more than once, slightly misaligned. As a result, every coin struck from that defective die shows the same doubling in Lincoln's ear. And because this error is bold, visible without a microscope, and easy to recognize, collectors love it. In circulated condition, an authentic 1984 doubled ear penny can sell for $100 to $300. In higher grades, especially uncirculated examples with strong detail and shine, prices often rise to $500, $1,000 or more. Some certified top-condition examples have sold for several $1,000s at auction. That's from a penny that once bought nothing more than a piece of candy, and now can buy a nice vacation. But the doubled ear isn't the only reason the 1984 no mint mark penny is collectible. Other errors from this year include off-center strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and wrong planchet strikes. Some 1984 pennies were accidentally struck on leftover copper blanks from earlier years, making them heavier and far more valuable. These rare copper 1984 cents can sell for thousands of dollars because they were never supposed to exist. There are also doubled die varieties affecting other parts of the coin, such as the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile. While not all of these are worth huge sums, many sell for $20, $50 or more, still impressive for a coin most people ignore. Let's look at real-world examples. In recent years, verified 1984 doubled ear pennies graded by professional services have sold at major auctions for $800, $1,000, $200, and even over $3,000 in pristine condition. A rare copper composition 1984 penny sold for over $10,000 after laboratory testing confirmed its metal content. Even off-center strikes and dramatic mint errors from this year regularly sell for $50 to $500, depending on how unusual they look. What's important to understand is that most 1984 pennies are only worth face value, but the small percentage with errors or rare features are what drive collectors wild. And because billions were made, many people still have rolls or jars of these coins sitting at home, meaning valuable examples are still being discovered. So how can you tell if you have a valuable one? First, check the date. Make sure it reads 1984 and has no mint mark below the date. If there's no letter there, it's from Philadelphia, and that's what we want. Next, look closely at Lincoln's ear using a magnifying glass or your phone camera. On the doubled ear variety, you'll see a clear extra outline behind the ear lobe and inner ear. It won't look like scratches or damage. It will look like part of the original design, just doubled. Then, weigh the coin if you have a scale. A normal 1984 penny should weigh about 2.5 grams. If it weighs closer to 3.1 grams, it may be struck on an old copper planchet, and that's extremely rare and valuable. Also inspect the edges and shape. Off-center coins, clipped edges, or odd shapes can indicate mint errors. Look for doubling in the letters, numbers, or Lincoln's face. And examine the color. A bright copper color instead of the usual dull zinc tone could mean something unusual. One important thing to know is that fake errors exist. Some people try to alter coins by carving, filing, or damaging them to simulate doubling or unusual shapes. True mint errors usually show smooth, rounded features, not sharp cuts or rough surfaces. If you think you have something special, don't clean the coin. Cleaning can destroy its value. Instead, store it safely and consider having it authenticated by a professional grading service. Here's a surprising fact. The doubled ear variety wasn't discovered immediately. It circulated for years before collectors noticed it, meaning many valuable examples were likely spent on vending machines, parking meters, and candy bars without anyone realizing what they were holding. Another interesting detail is that the 1984 penny comes from one of the busiest years in U.S. mint history. The Philadelphia Mint alone produced over 7.5 billion cents that year. That massive output increased the chances of die wear and mistakes, and that's exactly what happened. Collectors also love this coin because it represents a modern era that's easy to understand. You don't need advanced equipment or deep technical knowledge. You just look at Lincoln's ear. If you see doubling, your heart rate jumps. The coin also holds appeal because it bridges generations. Many adults today grew up using these pennies. They remember them in school lunch lines, piggy banks, and change jars. Finding out that one of those ordinary coins might be worth hundreds or thousands of dollars adds a sense of mystery and excitement to something familiar. Another fun fact, even worn examples of the doubled ear penny are valuable. Unlike many coins that must be in perfect condition to command high prices, this era remains collectible even if the coin has been circulated, as long as the doubling is visible. That makes it one of the most approachable era coins for beginner collectors. There's also something powerful about the idea that valuable coins aren't always old. Many people assume only 1800s coins or gold pieces are worth real money. But the 1984 penny proves that even modern coins can carry hidden value, especially when something unusual happens at the mint. This is why collectors still search through rolls of pennies from banks, inherited coin jars, and old collections. Every roll has the potential to contain a rare variety. And unlike lottery tickets, you don't lose anything by checking. You can always spend the coins if they're ordinary. So why do collectors love the 1984 no mint mark penny so much? First, it's accessible. You don't need thousands of dollars to get started. You might already own one. Second, it's educational. It teaches how minting errors occur and how tiny variations can turn everyday objects into collectibles. Third, it's exciting. The doubled ear variety is dramatic, visible, and satisfying to spot, like discovering a hidden signature on a famous painting. And finally, it represents possibility. It reminds people that valuable treasures aren't always locked in vaults or museums. Sometimes they're hiding in plain sight, mixed in with pocket change. Imagine this. You're sorting through an old jar of pennies that's been sitting on a shelf for years. You're about to dump them into a coin machine when one catches your eye. The date says 1984. There's no mint mark. You tilt it under the light and notice something strange about Lincoln's ear. It looks doubled. Suddenly, that jar of change isn't just spare coins anymore, it's a treasure hunt. That moment of discovery is what drives coin collecting. It's not just about money. It's about history, curiosity, and the thrill of uncovering something unexpected. Even if you don't find a rare one, you gain a deeper appreciation for the coins you use every day. Each penny has passed through countless hands, lived through decades of history, and played a role in millions of small moments. And if you do find a valuable one, that tiny coin becomes a story, something you can share, study, and remember forever. So the next time you see a 1984 penny, don't dismiss it. Take a closer look. Examine Lincoln's ear. Check the weight. Look for odd shapes or doubling, because hidden among billions of ordinary coins are a few extraordinary ones, and one of them could be waiting for you. Sometimes history doesn't shout. Sometimes it whispers from the smallest places, and sometimes it's sitting quietly in your pocket, worth far more than anyone ever imagined. Most people have held this coin in their hand and had no idea what it could really be worth. A simple brown penny from the late 1990s that looks completely ordinary. But some versions of the 1998 no mint mark Lincoln penny have surprised collectors, sold for hundreds, even thousands of dollars, and turned pocket change into real money. And the shocking part is, many of these coins are still out there today. This video is about the 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, a coin most Americans have seen, spent, and forgotten, but one that hides fascinating history, rare variations, and serious collector interest when found in the right condition. Let's start with what this coin actually is. The 1998 Lincoln penny is part of the Lincoln Memorial Cent series, one of the longest-running coin designs in United States history. The front shows Abraham Lincoln, designed by Victor David Brenner, first introduced in 1909 to honor Lincoln's 100th birthday. The back shows the Lincoln Memorial, a design used from 1959 until 2008. When a 1998 penny has no mint mark, it means it was struck at the Philadelphia Mint. Philadelphia usually doesn't add a mint mark to pennies, so no letter under the date is normal, not an error. In fact, most 1998 pennies were made there, and more than 5 billion were produced that year. Yes, billion with a B, so at first glance, this sounds like the opposite of rare. But coin collecting isn't just about how many were made. It's about condition, errors, special varieties, and demand. And that's where this coin becomes much more interesting. Now let's talk about the year 1998 itself. In 1998, the U.S. Mint was preparing for a major change. Just 1 year later, in 1999, the Lincoln penny would switch to a special series honoring all 50 states on the reverse side, followed by the Lincoln bicentennial designs in 2009. But in 1998, America was still producing the traditional memorial cent, the classic look that most people associate with modern pennies. By this time, pennies were no longer made mostly of copper. Instead, since 1982, they were struck from zinc with a thin copper coating. The 1998 penny weighs 2.5 grams and is made of about 97.5% zinc and 2.5% copper plating. It looks like copper, feels like copper, but inside it's mostly zinc. Still, collectors care deeply about these coins, especially when they're found in pristine condition or with unusual characteristics. Now let's look at the design itself. On the front, Abraham Lincoln faces right. Above his head are the words "In God We Trust." To the left is Liberty, and to the right is the date, 1998. If there is no letter below the date, that means Philadelphia. On the back, the Lincoln Memorial stands tall, with the words United States of America across the top and EPLURIBUSUNUM above the building. At the bottom is 1 cent. If you look closely between the columns, you can actually see a tiny statue of Lincoln sitting inside the memorial, one of the smallest engraved details ever used on a U.S. coin. Most people never notice that. Now let's get to the big question. Why would a 1998 no-mint mark penny be worth more than 1 cent? The first reason is condition. Almost every 1998 penny in circulation today is worn, scratched, darkened, or damaged in some way. But a penny that has never been circulated, one that still has full shine, sharp details, and no marks, can be worth far more than face value. Professional grading services like PCGS and NGC grade coins on a scale from 1 to 70. A perfect modern coin is graded MS70, but those are extremely rare. For 1998 pennies, most uncirculated coins fall between MS60 and MS66. But once you reach MS67 or MS68, the population drops dramatically, and that's where the prices rise. A 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny graded MS67 has sold for around $100 to $300. In MS68 condition, some have sold for over $1,000. That's for a coin that originally cost 1 cent, a return of over 100,000 times its face value. But condition alone isn't the only reason collectors pay attention to this coin. The second reason is errors and varieties. Most pennies are struck cleanly and correctly, but sometimes Something goes wrong in the minting process, and those mistakes can turn an ordinary coin into a rare collectible. One of the most desirable varieties involving the 1998 penny is the 1998 wide AM. To understand this, look at the reverse of the coin at the word America. On most pennies from the 1990s, the letters A and M in AM almost touch at the bottom, but on some coins they are spaced farther apart. This is called the wide AM variety. In 1998, the U.S. Mint accidentally used proof reverse dies, meant only for collector proof coins, on some business strike pennies. This created a small number of 1998 wide AM cents released into circulation. These coins are rare, and collectors actively hunt for them. A genuine 1998 wide AM penny in circulated condition can sell for $20 to $50. In uncirculated condition, they often sell for $100 to $300. In top grades, some have sold for over $1,000, and many people still don't know they have one. Other errors found on 1998 pennies include off-center strikes, double strikes, clipped planchets, die cracks, and weak strikes. While most are minor and only worth a few dollars, some dramatic errors can sell for $50, $100, or more, depending on how unusual they are. Now let's look at real-world examples. A 1998 no-mint mark Lincoln penny graded MS68 read by PCGS sold at auction for over $1,200. Another example graded MS67 sold for about $250. A confirmed 1998 wide AM penny in mint condition has sold for nearly $1,000. Even circulated wide AM examples regularly sell for more than $30. These aren't fantasy numbers. These are documented sales. And what makes this especially exciting is that many of these coins came from everyday pocket change, rolls from banks, or jars that had been sitting untouched for years. Now let's talk about how to identify a valuable one. First, check for a mint mark. If there is no letter under the date, that's normal for Philadelphia pennies, including valuable varieties. So don't assume no mint mark automatically means rare, it's just the starting point. Next, check the condition. Look at the shine. Does the coin still look bright and reflective? Are Lincoln's hair details sharp? Are the letters clear? Does the coin have scratches, stains, or dark spots? The cleaner and sharper the coin, the more potential it has. Now check for the wide AM variety. Flip the coin over and look closely at the word America. Focus on the letters A and M in AM. If they are nearly touching at the bottom, that's the normal version. If there is a noticeable gap between them, you might have the wide AM variety, and that's when things get exciting. Also check for doubling on the letters, uneven shapes, off-center designs, or strange cracks in the surface. These could indicate mint errors, but beware of damage. Scratches, dents, corrosion, and wear from circulation are not errors. They're just damage, and they usually lower value. As for fakes, modern pennies like the 1998 are rarely counterfeited because their face value is so low. However, altered coins exist, especially fake wide AM varieties. Some people try to modify the letters to create the illusion of spacing. To protect yourself, compare your coin to verified photos online, or have it examined by a professional coin dealer or grading service. Never rely solely on online claims without verification. Now let's talk about some fun facts. Did you know that in 1998 alone, the U.S. Mint produced over 10 million pennies per day? That's more than 400,000 pennies every hour, non-stop. Yet, out of billions made, only a tiny fraction qualify as high-grade collectibles today. Another fun fact, the Lincoln Memorial design is the only U.S. coin where the same person appears on both sides. Lincoln's portrait is on the front, and his statue inside the memorial is visible on the back. And here's something even more surprising. Some collectors believe that more 1998 wide AM pennies still exist in circulation today than have been officially reported, simply because most people don't know what to look for. That means valuable coins could still be hiding in penny rolls, coin jars, old wallets, and piggy banks across the country. Now let's talk about why collectors love this coin. First, it's accessible. You don't need thousands of dollars to search for one. You can find 1998 pennies in everyday change, bank rolls, or inherited collections. That makes it exciting because anyone can participate. Second, it's connected to a famous era in U.S. coinage, the final decade of the Lincoln Memorial Cent before the design changed forever. For many collectors, this coin represents the end of a long tradition and the beginning of modern numismatic history. Third, the wide AM variety adds mystery. It's a hidden treasure type of coin, one that looks ordinary unless you know exactly what to look for. That makes the hunt thrilling. Fourth, condition rarity makes it valuable. With most 1998 pennies heavily circulated, finding one in true gem condition is difficult. That scarcity in top grades creates real demand. And finally, this coin reminds collectors of something powerful. That value isn't always obvious. Sometimes, something that looks small, common, and worthless can turn out to be meaningful, rare, and valuable when viewed through the right lens. Now let's address something important. Most 1998 no-mint mark pennies are worth 1 cent. Even clean ones often sell for just a few cents or $1. Only those in exceptional condition, or with special varieties like the wide AM or dramatic errors, command high prices. So if you check your change and don't find anything special, that's normal. But if you do, you could be holding something far more valuable than you expected. And that's what makes coin collecting so exciting. You're not just collecting metal. You're collecting history, craftsmanship, mistakes, stories, and surprises. Every coin passed through countless hands. Every coin lived a life. And every now and then, one of them carries something extraordinary, something hidden in plain sight. So the next time you see a 1998 penny, don't toss it aside. Flip it over. Check the letters. Look at the shine. Because that ordinary brown cent might not be ordinary at all. It might be a rare survivor from billions minted, a mint error that slipped through the cracks, or a high-grade treasure waiting to be discovered. And sometimes, the most valuable finds aren't locked in vaults or buried underground. Sometimes, they're already sitting in your pocket. Imagine pulling a single penny from your pocket and realizing it might be worth far more than 1 cent. Not because it's old like a wheat penny, and not because it's silver, but because of something most people overlook every day: a tiny missing letter. Today, we're uncovering the real story behind the 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny, and why collectors quietly search for this coin more than you might expect. The 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny is a 1 cent coin produced by the United States Mint during one of the most active years in modern penny history. At first glance, it looks completely ordinary. Abraham Lincoln's familiar portrait appears on the front, and the Lincoln Memorial stands on the back. But there's something about this penny that separates it from billions of others: the absence of a mint mark. That missing letter has sparked curiosity, confusion, and in certain cases, serious collector interest. To understand why this coin matters, we need to step back into the year 2005. The United States was producing billions of pennies each year to keep up with everyday demand. Coins were being struck primarily at 3 locations: Philadelphia, Denver, and San Francisco. Most coins from Denver carry a small D mint mark. San Francisco coins usually carry an S and are mostly proof coins made for collectors. But coins struck in Philadelphia often have no mint mark at all. That means a 2005 penny without a mint mark usually came from the Philadelphia Mint. But here's the twist. In earlier decades, the absence of a mint mark wasn't always normal. And even in modern times, people still associate missing mint marks with rare mistakes. So when collectors see a 2005 penny without a mint mark, it immediately raises questions. Is it normal? Is it rare? Or is it something special? The Lincoln penny itself has one of the longest and most beloved histories in American coinage. Introduced in 1909 to honor the 100th anniversary of Abraham Lincoln's birth, it was the first U.S. coin to feature a real historical person. By 2005, the Lincoln cent had been in circulation for nearly a century, and its design was instantly recognizable to every American. The front of the coin still featured Victor David Brenner's famous portrait of Lincoln. The back still showed the Lincoln Memorial, a design introduced in 1959 to mark Lincoln's 150th birthday. In 2005, the United States Mint was producing massive quantities of pennies because cash transactions were still extremely common. Over 3.3 billion pennies were struck at the Philadelphia Mint alone that year. That means most 2005 no-mint mark pennies are not rare in the traditional sense. Millions still sit in jars, drawers, and old coin collections today. But within that massive production, certain examples stand out, and that's where the real story begins. Let's talk about what makes the 2005 Lincoln penny physically unique. Like all modern pennies, it is made mostly of zinc, with a thin copper coating. That change in metal composition happened in 1982, when the mint switched from solid copper pennies to copper-plated zinc to save costs. The coin weighs about 2.5 grams and measures just under 3/4 of an inch across. On the front, Lincoln faces to the right, with the words "In God We Trust" along the top, "Liberty" to the left, and the year 2005 to the right. Beneath the year is where you would normally find the mint mark. On Philadelphia coins, that space is blank. On Denver coins, you'll see a small D. On San Francisco proof coins, you'll see an S. So when people talk about a 2005 no mint mark penny, they are usually referring to a standard Philadelphia strike. But not all 2005 no mint mark pennies are created equal. Some were struck more cleanly than others. Some show sharp details, strong luster, and nearly flawless surfaces. These coins, known as high-grade examples, can be surprisingly valuable. Others contain mint errors, and those can be worth even more. One of the most interesting things about modern pennies is that errors happen more often than people realize. When coins are produced at high speed, mistakes slip through. On 2005 pennies, collectors have found off-center strikes, where part of the design is missing. They've found doubled dies, where letters or numbers appear doubled because the die itself was misaligned during production. They've found clipped planchets, where part of the metal blank was cut off before striking. And they've found die cracks and cuds, where broken dies leave raised lines or blobs on the coin. Now, here's where the no mint mark becomes important. If a 2005 penny from Philadelphia also shows one of these errors, its value can jump dramatically. While a normal circulated example is usually worth only face value, an error coin can sell for tens, hundreds, or even thousands of dollars, depending on the type and severity of the mistake. So why does this penny generate so much attention if most of them are common? The answer lies in condition and rarity within condition. In coin collecting, grade is everything. A coin that has never circulated, never been scratched, and still shows its original mint shine is far scarcer than one that's been passed through thousands of hands. Professional grading services assign coins numerical grades, and coins that score at the very top of the scale can become extremely valuable. For the 2005 no mint mark Lincoln penny, examples graded MS67, MS68, or higher are exceptionally rare. These are coins that look almost perfect even under magnification. In recent years, some of these high-grade examples have sold at auction for several $100s. In rare cases, especially when paired with unusual color or surface quality, prices have climbed even higher. One auction example involved a 2005 no mint mark penny graded MS68 red. meaning it retained its original copper-red color with almost no imperfections. That coin sold for well over $1,000. Another example with strong luster and clean surfaces reached several $100s at auction. While these prices don't match the legendary six-figure Lincoln penny errors of earlier decades, they still prove that modern coins can carry serious value when the conditions are right. Collectors also search for specific error varieties from 2005. Some double-die obverse pennies show noticeable doubling in the word Liberty or in the date. Others show doubling in Lincoln's eye or jawline. These errors can sometimes be spotted with a magnifying glass and are highly desirable among specialists. Prices for these coins vary, but authenticated examples can range from $50 to several $100s, depending on clarity and condition. Another category of valuable 2005 no-mint mark pennies includes off-metal strikes. These are coins struck on the wrong type of blank, such as a dime or foreign coin planchet. While extremely rare, such errors have occurred throughout U.S. mint history. A confirmed off-metal 2005 penny would be considered a major discovery and could command thousands of dollars from collectors. Now let's talk about how to identify a real 2005 no-mint mark penny and avoid confusion or disappointment. First, look at the date and the area beneath it. If there's no letter, that means it was likely struck in Philadelphia. That alone does not make it rare. Next, examine the coin's surface. Is it heavily worn, scratched, or dull? If so, it's probably only worth face value. But if it still shines, with sharp details on Lincoln's hair and beard, and clean fields with no marks, it may be worth closer inspection. If you suspect an error, use a magnifying glass and look closely at the letters, numbers, and edges. Doubling should appear as clear separation, not just blurry or thick lettering. Check the rim for missing sections or unusual shapes. Check the surface for raised lines or blobs that weren't part of the original design. If something looks unusual, compare it to a normal penny from the same year. Avoid online myths and exaggerated claims. Many listings describe ordinary 2005 pennies as rare, simply because they have no mint mark. That's misleading. The real value comes from condition, errors, and certified authenticity. If you believe you found something special, consider sending the coin to a professional grading service for evaluation. Authentication and grading can make the difference between a curiosity and a legitimate collectible. Now for some surprising facts about the 2005 Lincoln penny. In that year alone, the U.S. Mint produced over 7 billion pennies across all mints. That means statistically, nearly every American has handled a 2005 penny at some point in their life. Yet very few people ever stop to look closely at them. Even fewer realize that among those billions, a tiny fraction are worth far more than 1 cent. Another interesting detail is that by 2005, the cost of producing a penny was already approaching its face value. This sparked debates in Congress and among economists about whether the penny should be discontinued. Yet production continued, and collectors today benefit from those massive mintages, especially when rare varieties slip through unnoticed. There's also something fascinating about the psychology of the no-mint mark. Many people instinctively associate missing information with mistakes. When they see a blank space where a letter could be, they assume something went wrong. In reality, the Philadelphia Mint intentionally omitted mint marks on most coins for decades. But that confusion has fueled interest, searches, and countless stories of people thinking they struck gold with a pocket change discovery. So why do collectors love the 2005 no-mint mark Lincoln penny today? Because it represents something modern collectors appreciate deeply. The idea that treasure doesn't always come from the distant past. You don't need to own a 1909 SVDB or a 1943 copper penny to experience the thrill of discovery. Sometimes, value hides in plain sight, inside coins you've already handled without a second thought. Collectors also enjoy building Daytan mint sets. And the 2005 Philadelphia penny plays an important role in completing modern Lincoln cent collections. Others focus on high-grade examples, searching rolls of bank pennies in hopes of finding that one nearly perfect coin. Era collectors chase unusual strikes from this year because modern minting technology makes dramatic mistakes rarer and therefore more exciting. There's something powerful about holding a coin that looks ordinary but carries a hidden story. It reminds us that history isn't always locked in museums or buried in treasure chests. Sometimes it's sitting quietly in your pocket waiting to be noticed. So what should you do if you find a 2005 no mint mark penny? First, don't spend it right away. Take a closer look. Examine its condition. Look for unusual details. Compare it to other pennies from the same year. If it looks special, store it safely in a coin holder to protect it from damage. And if you believe it might be valuable, seek professional advice before selling or trading it. Even if your coin turns out to be worth only 1 cent, you've gained something else: awareness. Awareness that everyday objects can hold stories, history, and sometimes hidden value. And that awareness is what turns casual observers into collectors. In the end, the 2005 no mint mark Lincoln penny isn't famous because of one legendary auction or one jaw-dropping error. It's famous because it proves a simple truth about coin collecting. You don't always need ancient coins or rare metals to experience excitement. Sometimes all it takes is curiosity, attention, and a willingness to look twice at something everyone else overlooks. So the next time you receive change at a store or empty your pockets at the end of the day, pause for a moment. Check the date. Check the mint mark. Look at the details. Because somewhere among millions of ordinary coins, there may be one quiet penny that tells a much bigger story than anyone expects.